Hello and welcome. This is the second part of our strings and lists video where we're going to be making our little project where we'll build a search tool that will search your query across a couple different websites. So let's jump into the code and see how we're going to do that. First thing you'll notice is that I've pre-populated our program with the shebang that we learned about in our string methods video, and then this if name equals main block. We're not really worried about understanding this yet. It's not an advanced thing, but it's not a basic beginner thing. We'll be hitting this in a few videos, not immediately, but a little shortly down the road. So um, actually, before we go too far, let's talk about what this program is going to do. What we want to do, I'm going to write some comments to make some notes to ourselves. What we're going to do is we're going to start with a list of websites. And we're going to split these websites up based on how they treat space characters. Split sites based on space. And what I mean by that is when you search a website, because web addresses can't have spaces in them, if you search multiple words in your search, it will have to convert those spaces to a different character when it builds the website, when it builds the address of the search site. So an example of that is that Google, it will change any space characters to %20. Conversely, Amazon will convert any space characters to a plus. So we're going to split our websites up based on how they manage that space character. And once we've done that, we're going to start a for loop. We're going to run a for loop over those lists, that will open this. And that for loop, what it's going to do is it's going to open each of the sites, open each of those sites. So what I actually need to do up here is we're going to say taken command I can't type command line query. So what this will do is when we call our program from the command line, we'll add some arguments there to let it know what to search for on each of these sites. And that's basically it. It's just going to open our default browser to these sites and go ahead and search them with whatever we entered as the query. So let's go ahead and start coding this out. The first thing we're going to need to do is, the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to import some packages. So we'll import, from sys, we're going to import argv. And what argv does is it allows us to use command line arguments. Argv is the list of arguments that are passed in on the command line. We don't need to understand that too much. When we get to the demo, I'll talk about that a little bit more, because we'll be able to see it in action. It'll make a little more sense. Then we're also going to, from the web browser module, we're going to import open new tab. And so what this will do is it will open a new tab in whatever window is running in your default web browser. I do believe that if you do not have a window open, it should open a new window for you as well. So then I'm just going to put a space in here after it so it's a little easier to read. The next thing we want to do is we want to make a list of a couple websites. So I'm going to go ahead and open a blank line here. And I'm going to copy this over from my test file because I've already typed this out and I know these sites work. So let's take a look at what I've added. We've got HTTPS Google. So with the web browser module, you want to give it the full website. You don't want to chop off anything. You don't want to just do www to Google. Um, this is just safer. It'll guarantee that it'll work. So we've got google.com/search, some gobbledygook, and then the last thing we see is this q equals. this is Google's syntax to let itself know that what comes after this q equals is the query. So if we were searching for Python for loops, this website would say Python percent 20 for percent 20 loops. Because like I said earlier, Google, what it does is it replaces those space characters as %20s. So if we open this up, this would be the same as going to Google and running a search for Python for loops. Let's go ahead and get that back to its prototype. And so this is the same thing with Google Groups. They use that same q equals. For Craigslist, it does query equals, and then we've got Craigslist in our plus list because instead of doing %20, they replace spaces and queries with a plus. So these are our 4 websites. You can add as many or as few as you want into here. But these are all the different sites that are going to be opened and searched when we run this script. And we can delete this comment because that's what these 2 lists do. Is it you know what? Let's undo that and let's just move this back up so that we know why there's 2 different lists here and what their names are pointing at. So the next thing we want to do is we're gonna start a loop. We're gonna start a loop over each of these lists. So we're gonna actually start 2 loops. So we'll do for URL. When writing loops, writing any variables, it's good to use a descriptive name. And since we're looping over different URLs, I'm going to say for URLs in URL in list. So for URL in %list. So what we want to do here is we want to add the command line arguments to this prototype search URL. So we'll say URL equals URL, the basic, what we have already, plus our query, plus our command line arguments. And to get that, what we're going to do is we're going to say %20 dot join. So from our other videos on strings and lists, we know that this is how you join. This is how you join a list of strings. So what Argv is going to do, Argv is a list of command line arguments. Argv, I'm just going to type this in. So Argv0 is always the name of the program that's being run. So we don't want that. That's not part of our query. Our query starts at Argv1 and it's going to continue to the end of Argv. It's going to include however many command line arguments we have. Yes, so that's what we wanted to make our URL. We want to concatenate our URL to add the thing that we're searching for, and then we want to open that web page. So we're going to say open new tab at the URL. So before we go any further, let's just go ahead and test this out. So I'm going to come down here. Actually, I'm not going to come down here. I'm going to go back up here. By convention, it's good to put your main at the top of your file. That way, someone can come in real quick, look at main, see what the file does before they go down and look at the function definitions and see what's going on. In fact, because there are no functions in this simple little file, I'm just going to encapsulate everything. Undo. I'm just going to encapsulate everything into main. So say def. Actually, let's put main down here. No, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. So now we have something we can run. Now if we run this, I'm getting a warning because we haven't implemented plus list yet, but now if we run this, what it's going to do is it's going to loop over percent list. It's going to look at each of the entries in percent list, which we're calling URL. So it's going to look at the first URL, and it's going to add the search thing that we did with the command line arguments, and then it's going to open that web page. So let's run this from the command line. Um, this program is called, so we say Python 3 strings and this dot py, and then now we're going to add our command line arguments. And we're going to search for Python for loops. Oh, that's my fault because you know what? Let me actually. I'm gonna rename this file to strings. I'm in the wrong file. I'm in. If we look down here, I'm several directories up. Excuse me one second. So cd into. There we go. Okay. Now if we strings, move this to searchdemo.py. That's going to be easier. So now if we Python 3 search demo.py, and we're going to look for Python for loops. And we see we've got Google Groups, Python for loops, Python %20 for %20 loops %20. Let me see if I can zoom that in for you. I can't zoom in the %20s, I'm sorry, but you can see that it is searching Python for loops. And if we come over here, we see Python for loops as well. Again, I can't zoom up to the bar, but we can see that's working. So let's go back to our code editor. Let's go back to our code editor. And so let's take a look down here at the terminal, and we see searchdemo.py. This is argv0. This is the name of the thing, and then this is argv1, argv2, argv3. So when we did up here 1 to the end, what it did was it added. You know what, Red? This is going to be a little awkward to say out loud, so let me just print out URL so you can see it. Save that, and then we'll just run this one more time. And then it went ahead and opened those tabs for us. So it didn't. I was kind of expecting that to have printed for me. That's okay. We know it's going to the websites we want. We've seen it working, so let's go ahead and we'll take that back out. And let's go ahead and implement this for the plus list. So we're going to insert tab over for URL. This is the same thing. In fact, let's do this the smart way. We'll come back up here, and we'll just we'll do yank 3 lines, come down, and then we'll paste them in. So for URL and percent list, we want to change percent list. So let's change percent list to plus list. And then down here, we want to change this to a plus. And that's the only thing we needed to make difference. So now if we run this whole file, if we save it and we run it all, it's going to open all 4 of those for us. I'm just going to switch over to Chrome and quit this. So if we open up our terminal, we run the same thing with Python for loops. Huh. That was not anticipated. Why didn't that? Interesting. I'm not sure what happened there. Let me check this out real quick. Okay, that makes no sense because I saved this. We're doing plus list here. Oh, guys, I had a pretty stupid. If you look up here, I'm still editing search and lists. I'm not editing search demo. So, um, interesting. So let me just fix this real quick. Let me cat. Okay, now if we run search demo, now okay, yep, there we go. So let me come over here and let me actually open this file. Sorry about that, team. That was my fault. And then we'll come up here. We will uncomment these. We'll save this. Come back to our terminal and run it again. Let me quit Chrome. Now, if we run this from our terminal, we should get all 4 of those websites opened. Okay, there we go. This is beautiful. This is working great. We get all of them open. We see they are searching for loops, searching Python for loops, searching Python for loops, Python for loops. Great, so this is working. Let me go back to the code one more time. So again, we're just going to walk through this all one more time. We start by importing argv. That's going to give us access to these command line arguments down here. Then we import open new tab. That's what's going to let us open the pages in our default web browser. Then we define a list of websites that we want to open. And then we loop over those lists individually and go to each item in those lists and add the string version of our command line arguments to that URL, which is the prototype for the search URL for that desired site. And then we open all of those pages and we're done. That's all it does. This is a really handy study tool when you're knee deep in programming and you can't find something. This will open all of your common search sites. So what I want you to do is I want you to go in, and the way we have Google and Google Groups, I want you to get rid of this Los Angeles and Amazon because we're not shopping. And I want you to make one of these Stack Overflow. So I want you to investigate how Stack Overflow changes the space character for searches. I want you to make another one that will search some common Reddits for learning programming. Learn programming, learn Python, Reddit/Python. So, and then taking it a step further, what are other websites that you find useful? Do you go to Geeks for Geeks? Do you go to W3 Schools? Um, go add all of those. Add all of those to this tool, so it'll just pop everything open for you at once, and then it makes searching faster. And keep this in mind as you're going through your studying. What are other tools like this that you can build for yourself that will make studying faster and smarter and better? Um, that's the thing about programming. You learn programming so that you can build things that make life easier. So as soon as you have the basic tools to start doing that, do it. Make studying easier for yourself by practicing what you're learning. Um, So that's that. There's no actual prompt for this one. It's just learn about search URLs and add some new ones for yourself. I think that's about all for this one. You'll find these files up on my GitHub shortly. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful day, one evening, night, whatever it is, wherever you are. We'll see you next time. Take care, y'all.